I'm Bryce Shoemate with Hardin County Government, and in the process of us keeping track and looking at this voting season, we promised you earlier when we did the interview with the two judge executive candidates that we would come to the clerk's office and look at what the ballot would look like, talk to David Logsdon about the new voting machines. So we want to welcome you to today's show and thank you for joining us. And hopefully, after today's show, you're educated on what to do with the new ballots and the balloting, write-in candidates, and voting. So, David Logsdon, a longtime person here in the county, and your dad was a clerk many years ago. So, you've been with the clerk's office several years now.
Several years. I feel like I've been here my whole life. But yeah, several years.
Kind of growing up in it, really, basically.
Yeah, really.
So, I know that a lot of people have questions about what the face of the ballot is going to look like.
Okay.
And folks, as we talk about this, during sometimes during the filming of this, we're going to be putting up on the screen the actual ballots so that you all can see what they look like. Plus, they're available on your all's website, right?
Yes, right. All of our election information is available in one format or another on our website at hccoky.org.
And we'll put that down at the bottom of your screen as well so that you all can go to that if you like and look at it. David, again, I know we kind of asked this question as we were doing the introduction, but what is the ballot face going to look like this election?
This is going to be a busy ballot face this go around. You know, you've got all your local officials, including all your city council races and mayoral races, and then we've got several judges races. We've got a school board, you know, for the city schools and everything on there. And so it's going to be pretty busy. And then we've got a very lengthy constitutional amendment on the back. We've got two constitutional amendment questions, but one of them is quite lengthy.
So basically what we've got are local elections, all of the local city council and mayors, and then all the county officials are up for election this time.
Exactly. And so it's a busy ballot.
And depending on where you live will depend on what ballots you actually get printed at the...
That's what I was going to talk to you about a little bit. You know, one of the most important things everyone should do, everyone should know this website. It's called govote.ky.gov. And anybody can go there and look at their voter registration, okay? Their own voter registration. You can't look at everybody's, just yours. And by doing so, then you can see, okay, who is my legislator? What legislative district am I in? So who can I vote for in this race? Who is my magistrate? The magistrate's pretty straightforward. Whatever your precinct code is, if it starts with an A, that's District 1, B, District 2. That's who your magistrate. And you can visit the county's website then and see exactly who is your current sitting magistrate. And then on this ballot face, you'll see Magistrate District 1 has these races, and so on and so forth. So, and then you can always, you know, it follows that if you're paying city taxes, you're most likely in the city limits. So you're going to have that city's people to vote for.
Right.
So that is something that when you look, you know, and look at that ballot face, and then if you're not tech savvy, if you don't do the internet kind of thing, this composite ballot always is published every election. It's required by law. We have to publish in the newspaper a week prior to the election is what we'll usually do.
So that'll be in the News Enterprise and the Sentinel, or?
I know it'll be in the News Enterprise. We do that every year. I'm not sure about the Sentinel because the size of the ballot face, I don't know exactly how that works out for them. But I know it'll be in the News Enterprise.
And if somebody doesn't get the News Enterprise, is there another way that they can
always come in here.
And get
you know, we've got it posted out where the public can see it here. We'll print you a copy of it. We like using that composite so that way it works for everybody in the county. And that way there's no way, it doesn't look anything like what it would look like in the precinct. So nobody could say, well, you know, try to bring one into the precinct and vote with it because it won't work. It's just nothing like what we use.
And folks, if you are new to the area and you don't know exactly where we're located, we're at 150 North Provident Way here in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. We're right off of Patriot Parkway. And so very easy to find. If you have trouble, give us a call here at County Government. We'll be glad to guide you here, but very easy to find. And the clerk's office is on the very first floor of our building.
Right, and we've reworked the clerk's office. In fact, we're working on it today. so that you can come into what used to be our records room, and now that's going to be our voting center. It's where you can come in for your records, you know, the deeds and mortgages to record them and things like that. But it'll also be where we have our early voting and stuff. But and if you can't come in, you can always call our election department. That phone number is 270-765-6762. And they'll be happy to, they can look up your voter registration. They can do anything you need to do. So,
and folks, I know I've told you all that at the beginning with the website location. We're going to post these things down at the bottom. I know Dave and I talk fast because we got a lot of information to get on in a 30-minute spiel, but we'll put that phone number and the website locations at the bottom of the screen so you can pick that up as well.
Right. Yeah. And so, and the one thing I'm going to say, just to finish up on the ballot face, you know, you guys are really, everybody, I encourage everybody to come by, get a copy of that ballot face and look at those constitutional questions.
So David, looking at how many different cities we have and then unincorporated areas that we have, how many different ballots are there, you know, for just this county?
Well, of course, you know, we have to do them now. The state law has changed in that they want, which we've always had precinct level reporting, but now as a result of some of the legislation changes, we have to have a ballot face for every single precinct, which precinct isn't a polling place. A precinct is how we categorize you as a voter, who you're qualified to vote for. And so those lines, those precinct lines, define those kinds of information. But yeah, we have to have one for every precinct, and then inside some precincts we'll have what we call a split. Like there may be a county race but a city in there, and there's just a few people live in the county in that precinct. We try to eliminate that as much as we can, but with a county like Hardin County that grows so fast.
And one of the ideal locations of that when we used to do different precincts was the Vine Grove area where you were up there close to the golf course, and part of that was in the county and part of that was in the city.
Yeah, and that's a very changing. That Vine Grove city limit line, I've updated that since I've worked here. I can't tell you how many times. So yeah, we try to stay on top of that, try to keep those splits out. In fact, a few years back, we redistricted Vine Grove just to make it easier for the voters there. You know, Debbie and I sat down and we looked at how we could make that work better for them, and we took, there used to be a split in one of the precincts called Vine Grove South. It was some of the city voters, but mostly the county voters. And we went back and said, hey, how can we make this easier for them? And so we made them 2 precincts that were nothing but Vine Grove city limits, and then put the county people in that area, because they're still part of Vine Grove, but they're not in the city limits.
Sure.
And that's how we do that. And there's only certain windows of time that open up where you can even do that, as far as this, because we have to have all this approved by the state board, and the Legislative Resource Committee has to look at everything we do as far as precinct maps.
So when people come in to vote, and this may jump ahead a little bit too much from your notes, but when people come in to vote at the 10 voting centers that we have across the county, the one thing they're going to see is election officers when they come in, and they're going to ask you what your address is and so on, so that they can get the proper voting ballot for you.
That is paramount. You know, the two biggest rules or guidelines or the spirit of the law, whatever you want to look at for all of elections statewide, is number one is, you know, your private ballot, that you're voting a private ballot that nobody else knows how you voted. And the second is that you get to vote for the things you have a right to vote for. And that is the most important thing. That is paramount to us, and that's part of the reason why, as we talk more about the new equipment and stuff, I will show you how what we've changed makes sure that runs as efficiently and effectively as possible.
So let's talk about, since you made a great segue into this, so let's talk about the new equipment. You all have just this year updated your voting equipment. Fiscal court voted to purchase that equipment for the clerk's office.
That's right. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
We have a new voting system that every piece of equipment in the polling location will look like this. Different pieces do different parts. But this is the scanner. You know, we used to have the big ones that look like big trash can kind of things, what my kids would always say. But they're a little shorter to make it look more wheelchair accessible. You know, that was one of the things they looked at. But there's a lot, it works a lot the same in that you just feed it a piece of paper and off it goes. But one of the things we're doing, like back to what you're talking about, making sure you get the right ballot, you're going to come in, we're going to check you in, at the same poll books we've used for the last, I think, 3 or 4 elections now. You're going to walk in, we're going to check you in, and then right on that table with that poll book is a device that looks like this, but it lets us print a ballot, lets us print your ballot right then. And so we'll punch in that code, and it'll print that ballot out. It takes about 20 seconds to print that ballot, and we'll hand it to you. So,
and there'll be where there'll be several of those, because I know you've got 10 voting centers.
We've got,
so you all had to coach me on that. I had to say voting centers instead of saying a precinct. So when you go in, will there be several of those printers there? Because that way we don't stack people up.
It's going to be set up the same way that we've set it up the last 3 elections, I know, for where we have going to have tables with the poll booths on them, or a poll book, the poll books on them, and you'll check in, and we'll have in the 2 largest, we'll have 5 printers with 10 check-ins. Because a lot of times people walk in, husband, wife, and they walk to a poll book. They're going to get the same ballot face. So we can just tell this machine, hey, give me 2 of that one. You know, so we just felt like that it would be overkill. Not only that, laser printers pull a lot of electricity, and I'm the guy that's in charge of logistics and technology here, and I have to think about a lot of that kind of stuff. So we were worried if we had too many printers.
Yeah, I know we were talking about North Hardin High School about where to plug in so you wouldn't blow.
We've done some extensive testing with it, and we know we're confident that they're good to go.
Okay.
But yeah, we will have at least 5 at North Hardin. We'll have 5 up here at Pritchard, but then everywhere else there's going to be 3. And so, you know, that should be, there'll be 3 everywhere, but the very, very smallest ones, which are at West Point, at Meeting Creek, they'll have 1 printing device. But that's no different than what it would have been back in the day when you came up and there's just a pad of ballots laying there and you had 1 torn off and handed to you. So.
Right. And David, we want the folks that are watching this show right now to know that this will be a quick process. There's not a delay. I know people got frustrated during the primary. They came in, saw the crowd out front thinking that there was a crowd inside the voting center, and there wasn't.
Well, yeah, and even once you got in, you'd look and you'd see there was a throng in front of the table where you picked up your ballot, because we didn't have the print on demand then. And you're having to hand somebody a slip, and then they'd walk to the table, and then there was 100, I'm probably going to say this wrong, but there was 128 separate ballots in every one of those. And we tried to call the pile down by saying, hey, these will be the most common ballots in this area, and so each place had a set, but the larger voting had just, you know, dozens of ballot faces that had to be sorted through, and our election officers did an outstanding job of doing that. But that still took more time.
But this will be easier.
Yeah, this will be easier and faster and more secure, because this is happening. The person that's looking you up is printing that ballot, and then you, the voter, can look at it. And that's another thing. We always encourage voters. You know, people a lot of times will walk away from that table where they've got that ballot. Go ahead and vote it, and then say, oh, I didn't get to vote for my city council, or I didn't get to vote for my school board guy. And, you know, it doesn't happen a lot, but we will never know if that person got the right ballot or not, because they went ahead and voted it, and it's, again, it's a private vote, private ballot. It's inside the machine. So look at your ballot when it's handed to you, question it. In every one of our polling centers, except for the very smallest ones, but they have access to us here to call us, we will have a deputy clerk there on site with access to the state voter registration systems that can look things up, make sure we've precincted you correctly. We'll have a digital copy of the map they can check, everything. So that's another wonderful thing about these polling centers. We can have those kinds of things in there. So yeah, in that aspect, the print-on-demand system is a lot more accurate and a lot less wasteful. You know, before in years past, we would print hundreds, thousands of ballots, and they just go to waste. Any unused ballot, you can't use it again. You're never going to that same election.
So
again.
this is just like an on-demand system.
It's
It'll
on
be
demand,
printed as you need it.
Right.
And so one of the things that we were talking about earlier is, you know, make sure you've got the right ballot, and make sure that you're coloring in your box, because that's what the machine looks for.
That's what the machine looks for.
Each one of these boxes to color in.
Yeah.
And even if you went to, say, you wanted to vote a straight party or whatever, you still have to color in that box.
You still
for
got
a
to
straight
color in
party.
that box. Yeah, that's the thing I was going to talk about how to mark these ballots. These systems read these ballots like a human would. I mean, they're discerning. Is there a mark inside that square? Is it white or is it black? If it's not white, then it's black, and there's a mark there. And so you're going to want to, when you go to fill out your ballot, just like Bryce said, we'd like you to color it all the way in.
And you have to do that with the pencil, right?
You do that. We'll do it with the pen that's provided. We provide little ink pens there. But mainly you want to, when you're doing that, you want to watch for stray marks, because these new systems, the systems before would have seen a stray mark, but it would have just said, oh, that's an overvote and gone on. Okay? The new ones will see that if you've made a real, we had a story, one of the election vendors was telling me, had a person that was marked their ballot and then they'd put their pen down to think about the next one. And it made a little light dot right in the center of that box. Well, this machine will go to read that and say, hey, it'll literally say in plain English. And that's another reason why we bought the newer machines, because the other machines spoke electionese. It would say things like, you overvoted a contest. People don't know it. This one will say, you voted twice for this race. Or it'll even say, when you make a little light mark, it'll say, this mark's really light. We're not sure what you intended.
So if somebody does that, will they give you another ballot so you can redo it? That's
exactly what it's for. If you look at that and you see, oh, yeah, I did do it, or I did overvote it. I voted twice in that race. One of the ways a lot of times we see this is with city council races. It says vote up to 6. Well, people get excited.
They vote for 7.
They'll vote 7 down there. And that's an overvote. And this machine will push the ballot right back out. It'll tell you which race you did it with. And then you can make a choice then. Do I want to fix this? And if you do, then you can take it to one of the judges and they'll take you over to that deputy clerk I was talking about. They'll have you spoil that ballot and we'll get you another one that you can vote again. Okay. But if you don't, if you're okay with how it stands, you're not too worried about it now, well, I was just randomly picking those folks anyway, you can tell the machine, yeah, go ahead and take it. And any of those races that are overvoted like that one race, nothing else on that ballot, but that one race, it'll just disregard it, like you didn't vote in it at all.
And one other thing, because there's write-in candidates in this race, and I realize we've had write-in candidates before, but because this is a different system, what people don't realize, and folks, we're going to put this up on the screen so that you all can see it. If there is a write-in candidate on there, you have to color in the box
that's
next to where it says write-in, and then write the person's name in.
That was some of the regulations we were looking through, and when the state board certified these machines, that's part of the certification that had to go down, because you have to check the box for any other candidate. I guess the logic followed. You got to check the box for a write-in.
So let me repeat that, because somebody may have missed this. If you do a write-in candidate, there's going to be a write-in in West Point for mayor, there's going to be a write-in in Sonora for city council members, and there's going to be a write-in for county judge executive. So for those write-in measures, again, look down to whatever you're voting for where it says write-in, and it's down below the rest of the names, and you have to color in the box that is next to the write-in and then write the name in for it to count.
And the most important part of that name is the surname or the last name.
Right.
Now you can write in, if you know them, they're a good friend of yours and you wrote them in that way, every candidate that files as a write-in candidate will give us a list of nicknames that they might be called by, that kind of thing. But so long as the surname's the most important part, write it legibly, and know that you're going to do this. And a lot of times, there's a lot of write-ins that file that people don't know about. And that's another thing I was going to tell you, that we can't post who's filed as a write-in in the precinct. We can't put that up on the wall because that falls right in with electioneering. That's the way the state looks at it anyway. But we do keep it. Every one of those check-in tables will have a list of write-in candidates.
So you can see who they are. And you can
ask to see that list. So, because I think there's a state rep running as a write-in. There's some other choices. So you can ask, but if you know which ones you're already going to do, and know that when you come in, you don't have to see that list. You can know what you need to do, mark the box, write your name. But then also remember, just so you guys know, Mickey Mouse didn't file this year. So there's not on there, and neither did what's the other big one? Tony Stark. Well, now I'd say it's changed now. Now you got Tony Stark and some of the superheroes that people always vote for.
And we've got a sample ballot here that's what's on here is Tony Stark is running for one of the things, but now, when you brought up a good point, or before we began on camera, if you don't pay attention to the back of the ballot,
yes,
that there's something on the back. So, folks, you got to remember, there are things you can vote for on the front of the ballot, and there's things you can vote for on the back of the ballot, and that's for every precinct.
That's for every precinct. Because of the length of that number one constitutional question, it forced us to have the back of the ballot.
So when you put that in, you talked about this earlier, when you put this in the scanner to be scanned, if you haven't looked on the back, it pushes it back out and says you didn't.
And it won't tell you it's the back. It'll just say you left the page blank, because you can put it in the machine face up, face down. It doesn't know what you consider the back. It just knows that you didn't vote anything on that side. And it'll tell you that in real plain English. And then you can be, and that's another thing. They did that on purpose because so many people, a lot of times in these local races, a lot of times in these local races, and this is statewide, the local races, the city councils and stuff, end up on the back page. And people would just miss it. And they'd get out of the precinct and say, oh, I didn't. So that's the intelligence. You know, our older system scanned ballots just as efficiently. It was just as secure, just as safe. But there were little things like that. It assumed if you didn't color it in, then you didn't want to vote it. So it went on with its day. So yeah, just look at the ballot, and you know, when you're walking in there, like we can't say it enough, if you're going to do a write-in, if you're concerned about these constitutional questions, look this ballot up, read those things. One of them you're pretty much going to have to consult your lawyer to understand, but I don't know. The long one is really deep.
But what David's saying is know your candidates that you want to vote for, and pay attention and be educated before you come in. That way it doesn't keep you for a long time, like you stand there and go, man, which one should I vote for? Know what you're doing before you come in, because then that makes it less time for you, because people get frustrated sometimes at the length of time that they have.
There is a law on the books now that you have 4 minutes to vote unless you have some kind of physical disability that would slow you down. We don't typically call time. We're going to have a lot of we call them a poll booth. It's just a stand-up desk that you can stand at to vote. We're going to have a lot of them. You know, we had way too many last election, and I like it that way. So we're going to keep having way too many.
I start thinking, you know, it may take me sometimes longer than 4 minutes to vote.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. If you know what you're doing when you come in, bang, go ahead. The one other thing I want to talk about before we get on to how the machine works
we're about out of time. I mean, we're running close
really,
here.
On 30 minutes? Wow.
We knew it'd go by fast.
Okay. Just remember on straight party votes, if you vote a straight party, any vote you vote not along those lines, like say you check the Republican box, but you got your best friend's a Democrat over here, you can mark that person, and it will that one race, it'll take that vote the way you marked it and disregard your straight party, but the rest of that ballot, it votes at straight party.
So how does that work if you've got nonpartisan races?
Same exact way. If you just hit straight party and then don't vote your city councils, it won't do anything because they're nonpartisan.
So if I voted straight party and then voted my city council as well,
perfectly all right.
Okay,
you'll count it just fine.
Because I know some people would have that question.
And it's no different. Like I said, it takes whatever vote you mark on the rest of the ballot. Because the reason they had to do that is because a lot of people, they know in the spring they have to tell you what party they are. Then they come in the fall and they think they got to tell you again. So they mark that straight party box thinking that's marking which party they are.
Right.
And they don't realize it's voting that way. So they had to make sure that whatever you did on the rest of that ballot, it counts it that way.
Okay. Do you want to show us how this machine works real quick?
Yeah. It comes in, you know, and the first thing it does every morning, when it comes in, it's going to show the election officers that it's zeroed out. It's going to print it. It's going to print a little zero tape, and then it'll be ready to go.
So I have a sample ballot that's just it's a fake ballot, and so we're going to insert this in here to show everybody how to do this.
And of course, it'll take the ballot any way except sideways, which it won't fit that way. But other than that, it'll upside down, whatever you consider upside down, right side up.
So it's Bryce proof.
Yeah.
And we would have said dummy proof, but we say it's Bryce proof.
It's all the way around. It's anybody proof, really. And you know, the older machines, people would try to slip them under the machine. Not an option anymore.
Right.
And you know, this is a thing that'll get printed every morning to show that it was set to zero on election day. And then all the election officers sign right there to sign off on it that they know this wasn't tampered with before it got there.
Awesome.
And now it's, you know, it's just simple. and the polls are going to be open, and he's going to get to vote this ballot in just a second.
We've got a sample ballot, and so that you all see, this is not one of our ballots for Hardin County, because I'm literally voting for Peter Parker, who was Spider-Man, okay?
Yeah.
So
give it a second and see it. And it even shows a picture on the screen how to insert it in the machine, and it has runway lights on it.
So you all can see I'm putting it in upside down for what most of us was in. I'm just going to insert it in there just to show you it works no matter which way you put it.
Let's see. Okay, it's not Bryce proof. Apparently, you ran it over the rail. You got to put it. You do have to put it in there straight.
You got to put it in there straight.
Because it can't line the boxes up just right. That's the only thing. But we want it to be that sensitive.
So that you all see at home, there's rails on either side here, so that it guides that piece of paper straight in. And I won't let it take it, but you can see I'm putting it in between the rails. I'm putting two together.
You can vote for twice.
So everybody can see that I'm keeping it within the rails now. And it took it.
It's just that simple.
So that was kind of cool. We did that because it shows how to not do it.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the thing.
So if anybody can mess it up, it's going to be me.
Right. Well, yeah. But then too, it also just shows that these machines are sensitive enough that we trust them implicitly to do what they're supposed to do.
We are getting close in. I want to make sure we get this information. There are 10 voter stations.
10 vote centers. That's correct.
So tell us where the 10 voter centers are.
The 10 vote centers are going to be, and I've got this where you all can put it on the screen. That's also on our website, and I believe we put it on our Facebook page.
Okay.
But it's going to be at Creekside Elementary. That's down in Sonora. Lincoln Trail Elementary, the new one. That's on out past the old one. So if you're going out there,
out 62, like you're going towards Bardstown.
It's 3970 Bardstown Road. At Lakewood Elementary, and that's down there right by the old West Hardin. And then we're going North Hardin High School, Pritchard Community Center, East Hardin, the new East Hardin at the end of the bypass down there.
Which is by the state police post, so that gets you still almost in Elizabethtown.
Yeah,
well, it is Elizabethtown.
Yeah, it's Elizabethtown. John Hardin High School, which is right up here in the edge of Radcliffe city limits. And Meeting Creek, then, the meeting that we've always had out at Meeting Creek, and up in West Point. We've got the West Point school system. So that way, if you're commuting back and forth to Louisville, you can catch that on the way home.
Okay. So, folks, we'll put this at the bottom of the screen as well. It's also on the website. And give us that website address one more time.
The website is www.hccoky.org.
David, thanks for your time today. I mean, this is a lot of information to give everybody real quick. You all are going to have early voting here that's starting when?
Yes, starting when, the early voting, again, that's on our website, and it will start. You have two different kinds. You have absentee, but you need an excuse to vote absentee, but the early voting will start the
31st?
Yeah, 31st through November 2nd, which is the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday before the election day.
So October 31st, and then running through there. So you can do that here at the Government Center here at 150 North Provident Way. Early voting starts on October 31st. So
and that's regular business hours now. It's 7:45 to 4:30.
Folks, stay informed. David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks
Our time went by real fast.
It did.
I was afraid it would. And thank you for joining us here on Hardin County Education and Community TV, where we try to keep you informed on everything that's going on in our county. Look for myself and Kendra Stewart. We're going to be doing live election night coverage that night, so we'll try and get you information the best we can. But because there's write-ins, it is going to take longer for us to get information on. And some of the races we may not know until the next day. Because it'll be so late in the evening by the time that comes out.
Yeah, we'll be pretty late.
Yeah.
And Debbie Debbie Donnelly, the clerk, really wants me to remind everybody, take advantage of early voting.
Yes.
Because you just don't know what's going to happen on that election day. You could have anything happen and miss your opportunity. Come in early and vote.
Stay tuned to HCTV. We'll keep you informed on what's going on throughout the county, but more importantly, what's going on in your students' life in the Hardin County school system. I'm Bryce Shoemate. Thanks for joining us today.